Imagine living in a world where you couldn't trust the phone in your kitchen, the lamp on your desk, or even the coin lying on the pavement. And the briefcase you carried every morning might secretly be transmitting your conversations to the other side of the world. This was the Cold War, a silent battleground fought not with armies marching across continents, but with the sky's cameras. The Cold War era was a technological arms race unlike any other. The United States, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, East Germany, and several intelligence agencies across Europe and Asia competed ruthlessly to develop tools that offered the slightest advantage. The Stasi created some of the most extensive and intrusive surveillance devices in human history. Entire families were monitored without ever realizing it. Surveillance became a science, a cold, calculated method of control that blurred the lines between safety and tyranny. Utterly fascinating wasn't just how they worked. It was the sheer audacity of the missions they were designed for. The miniature cameras of the era evolved rapidly, becoming the backbone of espionage operations. The ingeniously designed Minix camera, often hailed as the quintessential spy camera, could fit into the palm of a hand, yet capture images sharp enough to reveal classified documents in detail. Its metal body, precision lens, and tiny film cartridges made it the perfect companion for intelligence officers who had to photograph state secrets under immense pressure. Picture an agent slipping into an office late at night, quietly opening a locked drawer, and snapping a series of rapid photos using only the dim glow of a desk lamp. The entire operation might last less than a minute, but those images could rewrite global policy. Meanwhile, the Soviets developed cameras that rivaled, and in some cases surpassed, Western technology. Their F1 button camera was a remarkable creation, hidden behind a normal-looking jacket button and activated using a concealed trigger mechanism. With a simple press, the camera silently captured images that could expose American agents, reveal Western strategies, or uncover secret alliances. This was the world of miniature photography, a silent, invisible war fought through lenses that no one ever noticed. Listening devices grew even more sophisticated and frightening. The CIA and MI6 pioneered early wireless transmitters, but the KGB took surveillance to a new level. One of the most astonishing examples was the Thing, a passive listening device hidden inside a carved wooden plaque of the Great Seal of the United States. It was presented as a gift to the U.S. ambassador in Moscow, proudly hung in his office, and secretly transmitted private conversations directly to Soviet agents for 7 years. It needed no batteries, no wiring, and it produced no detectable signal unless activated by a specific radio frequency. Engineers studying the Thing decades later still marvel at its simplicity and brilliance. It proved that the Soviets didn't just excel at brute force engineering. They mastered the art of elegant, undetectable surveillance. Meanwhile, Western agencies developed bugs so tiny they could be placed inside pens, glasses, electrical outlets, or telephone cables. The Stasi perfected mass surveillance by planting devices in apartments, hotels, and public buildings. They built entire archives of conversations, tracking the emotional tone, stress levels, and conviction of the people they monitored. The Cold War wasn't just a conflict of ideology. It was a battle for information, and every conversation mattered. While surveillance dominated intelligence strategy, the realm of disguised weapons reflected a darker side of the Cold War, one where assassination was a legitimate tool of geopolitics. Many governments denied involvement, but documents, testimonies, and declassified files revealed that several agencies maintain an arsenal of stealth weapons designed for deniable operations. The umbrella gun, used in a notorious assassination in London, is still remembered as one of the most chilling gadgets ever created. It symbolized how technology could turn something harmless into something lethal. The KGB also developed cigarette pistols, briefcase guns, and modified cameras that could fire a single bullet. MI6 engineered fiber-based garrots disguised as neckties and sharpened pens that could double as stabbing tools. Meanwhile, the CIA explored toxins, microdot guns, and concealed knives. The weapons were not designed for open confrontation. They were tools of precision, used only when diplomacy, negotiations, and covert pressure failed. These gadgets showed that for intelligence agencies, the line between spycraft and warfare was razor thin. Dead drops and communication tools remained essential to espionage. Spy agencies had to ensure that agents operating in enemy territory could receive instructions and send back intelligence without being detected. This led to the widespread use of hollow rocks, fake pipes, disguised bricks, and magnetic containers hidden under park benches or inside lampposts. A spy could walk past a seemingly ordinary object and retrieve a message without drawing attention. The CIA coded messages into everyday items like newspaper ads or children's drawings, while the KGB mastered invisible ink formulas nearly impossible to detect. Microdots allowed entire documents to be shrunk to microscopic specks, smuggled across borders in book bindings or shirt collars. The tools weren't just mechanical marvels, they were emotional lifelines, connecting isolated agents to the agencies guiding their missions. These communication systems were the backbone of spy networks, keeping operatives alive while ensuring that secrets flowed steadily across enemy lines. The Cold War also pushed the boundaries of technology in ways the world wasn't ready for. Agencies experimented with underwater surveillance devices, robotic vehicles, and early drones capable of crossing enemy borders unseen. The CIA famously attempted to create a spy cat, a bizarre project where a microphone and transmitter were implanted into a cat, so it could wander near targets and record conversations. The project failed spectacularly, but it proved how far agencies were willing to go in pursuit of information. The KGB explored the use of ultra-thin fibers that could be attached to clothing to track movement, while MI6 developed early night vision goggles and laser-based communication tools. Even satellites became part of the intelligence race, photographing military bases, missile sites, and nuclear facilities from space. In many ways, The Cold War was the birthplace of modern surveillance technology, and much of what we use today traces its origins to these secret programs. But the most surprising gadgets were often the simplest. Fake mustaches, reversible jackets, detachable soles for hiding documents, and wigs crafted by professional Hollywood artists. An operative could walk into a building looking like one person and walk out minutes later as someone completely different. This wasn't just about hiding identity. It was psychological warfare. When agents knew they could vanish into a crowd using a simple disguise, they gained confidence. When agencies realized they could plant a spy in enemy territory who blended perfectly with locals, they gained power. Some of these disguises were so sophisticated that even facial recognition algorithms today would struggle to detect them. All of this technology, from deadly umbrellas to hidden microdots, shaped the global landscape. Governments made decisions based on information gathered through these tools. Leaders trusted or distrusted each other based on intelligence delivered through these gadgets. The balance of power shifted because of inventions that fit into pockets, wallets, and household objects. And the most incredible part, much of the Cold War's technological arsenal is still classified. What we know today is only a fraction of what was truly developed. As we move into the next chapter of this story, the gadgets we'll explore become even stranger, more creative, and sometimes more shocking. These were tools designed for missions that pushed the boundaries of human courage and scientific possibility. And the deeper we go, the clearer it becomes. The Cold War wasn't just a conflict fought in shadows. It was a conflict engineered by minds capable of turning anything into a weapon, a camera, or a silent spy. During the Cold War, espionage wasn't just a battle of intelligence. It was a race to create the most unbelievable mind-bending gadgets ever engineered. And this is where the story gets even more fascinating, because once you step behind the curtain of secrecy, you discover a world where everyday objects were reimagined into weapons, transmitters, hideouts, and silent killers. Imagine strolling through a seemingly normal street in 1960s Berlin. The person sitting at the cafe table next to you might be holding a pen that wasn't just a pen. It was a micro camera capable of capturing secrets in seconds. Agencies like the CIA and KGB pushed science to extremes, turning necessity into innovation, and innovation into paranoia, fueling devices that blur the line between fiction and reality. These weren't toys. These were precision-built instruments designed for moments where one mistake could mean the difference between life and death. One of the most shocking examples was the CIA's famous Insectophobter, a tiny robotic dragonfly that looked alive but was actually a miniature drone. Decades ahead of its time, it carried a tiny microphone, and although wind issues ultimately limited its success, its very existence proved how far spy tech could be pushed. Meanwhile, the KGB perfected concealment technology that even today seems impossible. Like the hollow nickels used to pass microfilm messages, these coins were so perfectly machined that even professional investigators had trouble identifying them. And inside these tiny containers, critical intelligence flowed through enemy territory undetected. And then there were wearable gadgets that agents trusted with their lives. Shoes with secret heel transmitters became common tools for deep cover operatives. Some shoes even contained cavity heel compartments to hide cyanide capsules for emergencies. The Cold War was a time when betrayal could come from any direction, so operatives carried both tools of survival and tools of silence. But perhaps nothing symbolizes the era better than the famous spy umbrella. At first glance, it was an ordinary umbrella you'd see anywhere on a rainy London day. But in reality, it concealed a pneumatic needle system capable of firing a tiny, poison-filled pellet. This device was used in one of the most well-known political assassinations of the Cold War, the death of Georgy Markov. The umbrella wasn't chosen randomly. It was chosen because it was invisible in plain sight. That was the philosophy behind Cold War spy gadgets. Everything had to disappear into normality. Radios were hidden in rocks that looked so real geologists couldn't tell the difference. Cigarette packs doubled as listening devices. Lipstick tubes had single-shot pistols. Even briefcases were weaponized, turning into compact submachine guns that could fire through their own sides, allowing agents to eliminate a target without ever opening the case. The deeper we look, the more we understand that the Cold War intelligence world was driven by two powerful forces: fear and imagination. Agencies engineered tools for missions so classified that even those who built the devices never knew their final purpose. One small gadget could decide the direction of international politics, prevent a nuclear confrontation, or expose an enemy mole. And beyond the glamour of gadgets, this era reveals something profound. Technological innovation wasn't driven by curiosity alone, but by desperation. Each side believed the other had something more powerful, more advanced, more dangerous. This paranoia fueled a constant arms race, not just for nuclear weapons, but for information, secrecy, and advantage. What makes these gadgets even more remarkable is that many became the foundation for modern surveillance technology. The tiny microphones of the past became the blueprint for today's nanotech. Hidden camera devices eventually evolved into modern button cams, phone cameras, and even smart glasses. The Cold War may have ended, but its inventions live on quietly in the devices we use every day. And all of this, the microfilm, the hidden transmitters, the robotic insects, the weaponized umbrellas, paints a picture of a world where the smallest tools wielded the greatest power. These gadgets weren't just inventions. They were psychological weapons. An operative never knew when a pen, a ring, or a suitcase might be watching them. Every room, every object, every stranger carried potential danger or advantage. The Cold War wasn't fought on open battlefields. It was fought in shadows, through whispers, and with ingenious devices designed to manipulate, observe, deceive, and survive. As we bring this chapter to a close, it becomes impossible not to appreciate the brilliance and the madness behind these inventions. These tools shaped history in ways most people never knew, turning the Cold War into the most technologically creative and terrifying intelligence race the world has ever seen. As the Cold War entered its final stages, the spy gadgets created during this era evolved into machines that bordered on science fiction. Yet every single one served a purpose rooted in fear, strategy, and survival. And to truly understand the magnitude of these devices, you have to imagine the psychological battlefield they created. A world where every object could be a weapon, every voice could be recorded, every conversation could be monitored from thousands of miles away, and every agent lived with the awareness that they were always one step away from being discovered by a gadget more advanced than the one they carried. The last decade of the Cold War saw espionage agencies refining their tools into systems so advanced, so precise, that even today researchers studying declassified documents struggle to believe they existed. The CIA, for example, develop audio surveillance tools capable of capturing whispers through walls, using laser reflections on window glass to decode vibrations, and reconstruct entire conversations without being anywhere near the room. The KGB countered with soundproof shield rooms, portable chambers agents could assemble in hotel suites or apartments, built with special fabric that absorbed frequencies and blocked listening devices. The game of deception escalated relentlessly. Agencies turned to bio-gadgets, like hollow rings filled with neurotoxins, swallowable micro-recorders, and tracking devices embedded into dental fillings. There were even contact lenses containing tiny mirrors, allowing agents to see behind them without turning their heads. The Cold War pushed humanity into an age where inventors weren't just engineers. They were alchemists forging the impossible. One of the most futuristic creations, known as Operation Acoustic Kitty, attempted to turn a living cat into a mobile surveillance tool by surgically embedding transmitters and microphones into the analyst's body. The mission ultimately failed, but the attempt itself proves the desperate levels intelligence agencies were willing to reach. Meanwhile, the East German Stasi developed odor jars, glass containers used to preserve the body scent of suspects so dogs could track them for years. It sounds absurd today, yet it was a standard procedure. Alongside these bizarre inventions came the ultimate gadgets, satellites. By the 1980s, the Cold War intelligence battlefield had expanded into space. Reconnaissance satellites could read license plates, detect the heat signature of submarines underwater, and provide live surveillance of enemy bases from orbit. For the first time in human history, gadgets provided a form of godlike observation, turning the sky into an invisible weapon. But even on the ground, gadgets remain the backbone of every dangerous mission. Spy briefcases evolved into portable document labs, allowing operatives to forge papers, duplicate keys, or decode signals without returning to headquarters. Cameras shrank to the size of coat buttons. Poison delivery systems became more discreet, using microneedles that left almost no mark. Even vehicles turned into spy devices. Cars with hidden smuggling compartments, motorcycles with concealed transmitter kits, bicycles rigged with under-seat cameras to capture surveillance footage of European streets. In the shadows of the Cold War, technology moved faster than public awareness, because every advancement was built in secrecy, tested in secrecy, and deployed in secrecy. These tools shaped political decisions, toppled covert operations, protected agents, exposed moles, and sometimes prevented nuclear war, without the world ever seeing the silent war being fought behind closed doors. And as the Soviet Union neared collapse, intelligence agencies prepared for a new era, understanding that although the Cold War would end, the war for information would only grow more complex. The gadgets they built became the prototypes for the digital surveillance systems we live with today. The microphones hidden in pens eventually evolved into smartphone voice assistants. The button cameras became the foundation for modern security systems. The encrypted radio transmitters turned into modern cyber encryption technologies. Cold War spy gadgets didn't disappear. They evolved into the everyday tools that surround us. But perhaps the most important legacy of all is the mindset these gadgets created. Never trust the obvious. The Cold War forced humanity to look at the ordinary, a shoe, a coin, an umbrella, a cigarette, and imagine the extraordinary hidden inside. And even though the rivalry ended, the spirit of espionage continues in today's intelligence wars, cyber battles, and geopolitical conflicts. The Cold War era was a turning point, a moment when humanity realized information was more powerful than armies, and gadgets, small, silent, invisible, became weapons that shaped global destiny. So as we close this documentary chapter on the unbelievable world of Cold War spy gadgets, remember this: the tools may change, the enemies may shift, but the silent struggle for information never stops. And somewhere right now, in a lab hidden behind reinforced doors, new gadgets are being born. More advanced, more invisible, more impossible than anything the Cold War ever produced. The world may look peaceful, but the invisible war continues. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the secret technologies that shaped history, then you're exactly the kind of mind we want on this channel. Make sure you subscribe to Spycraft Chronicles, because we're just getting started. There are endless classified stories, covert tools, legendary agents, and black budget programs waiting to be uncovered. Hit the like button, drop a comment, and share this video with someone who loves real espionage. Your support doesn't just help the channel, it helps us keep exposing the hidden world behind the headlines. Stay sharp, stay curious, and remember, in the shadows of global power, nothing is ever what it seems.